Hello friends, I am Shivaji Bhaskar, Faculty of Russian at the School of Foreign Languages, IGNOU. I welcome you all to this course, Basics of Russian Communication Skills, Part 1. As you already know that we have been discussing about certain aspects of the Russian grammar and phonetics. We have been discussing about various concepts which relate to the Russian alphabet, various other cases of the Russian case system. We have also seen that how to differentiate different nouns as per their genders. In the previous module, we have discussed about the ending of the nouns as per the case from nominative to the prepositional. Specifically, we actually saw that how the endings of adjectives and nouns are agreeing, as well as when we are framing the question что and кто, when we are changing the question in the prepositional from о чем to о ком, we have seen that all these different kinds of words, all these different kind of nouns as per the genders are also changing. We have seen that there are certain set rules in the Russian grammar that the endings of the nouns and adjectives are same, but the only difference is that when we frame the question о чем or о ком, and that is the most important aspect. Now, since we have already talked about the personal pronouns in о ком and о чем, we have seen that я is обо мне, ты is о тебе, он и о нем, она is о ней, мы is о нас, вы is о вас, and ani is anik. Now, in this module, we will talk about the possessive pronouns. Let's go ahead and see how these possessive pronouns, which you already know, is мой, твой, наш, ваш, его, ее, их, are changing in о ком and о чем. So, when we have the simple question кто это, что это, for example, кто это, animate, мой друг, and что это, мой город, how do we see how they are changing in о ком and о чем? We change the possessive pronoun as well. О ком он говорит о моем друге. When we have the expression мой друг, my friend, so he is talking about my friend. So the sentence would be он говорит о моем друге. So there you can see how the ending is changing. We can simply see that и краткий is replaced by йом, моем друге. Whereas in case of мой город, which is inanimate, it is changing into о моем городе. So the noun is changing, друг is changing into друге, город is changing into городе. However, the only difference is when we frame the question о ком или о чем. Let's see a few more examples in the possessive pronoun. Now, after мой, we will have твой. So, first, кто? Твой брат. О ком? О твоем брате. Likewise, что? Твой дом. О чем? О твоем доме. And similarly, наш сосед, о чем and о ком. You can also make these kind of other sentences depending upon the nature of that particular noun. Alright, so we have already the list of personal pronouns, which is обо мне, о тебе, о нем, о ней, о нас, о вас, о них. And here we already know that these possessive nouns мой, твой, наш, ваш, их, how they are changing. So here наш is changing into нашим, ваш is changing into вашим, and let's go further. Его и ее changing into a его, a ее, and их is changing into обоих, обоих. So let's go back and let's revise this concept. Kto and što is changing into a kom and a ćom. Moj drug, a моем друге. Мой город, а моем городе. Твой брат, о твоем брате. Твой дом, о твоем доме. Наш сосед, о нашем соседе. Наш музей, о нашем музее. Ваш отец, о вашем отце. Ваш институт, о вашем институте. Now we'll go ahead and see кто and что, о ком, о чем, how it's changing. Его changes into a его, so there is no change. Ее remains a ее. Его, ее, in case of что also remains same. Whereas in case of ik we put ab because ik starts with e or a vowel. So aba ik, and then you can place the noun. In this case we have учительница, о ком, ab ik учительнице, and ik fabrica, and fabrica is inanimate, so ab ik fabrica. So I hope this concept is absolutely clear. How do we use the personal pronouns and possessive pronouns when we have the question of о чем and о ком. Okay, now let's see some of the cases where we have the possessive pronouns in neuter gender, such as мое общежитие. It will change into моем общежитии if we have the question from что to о чем. Then see the next one is possessive pronoun твое, because it is neuter gender word, письмо, so твое письмо changes into о твоем письме. Then наше поле, о нашем поле, ваше слово, в вашем слове. Then we have его remains его, ее remains ее, их changes into aba ik is done. Okay, so these are the some of the examples which you have from the neuter gender, and now we'll go ahead and see some of the important aspect. We have свой in Russian. Let's see how do we change it. Let's go ahead. Here свой is an expression which means one's own. Свой брат, my own. Я говорю о своем брате. I'm talking about my own brother. О своем доме, about my own house. So this connotes that this particular thing is yours own. So свой is very important. Let's see how do we use it in the case of о чем and о ком. So the first one is свой брат, one's own brother. Let's make a sentence. О ком он говорит, about whom he is talking. So we can use свой, он говорит о своем брате. He is talking about his own brother. Now let's see the next question. Now we'll take one question of the inanimate. For example, кабинет, which means cabin or study office. So свой кабинет. О чем он говорит? Он говорит о своем кабинете. So he is talking about his office, his own cabin. So you can differentiate between о ком and о чем in this manner while using the concept свой. Now let's see свой, how it changes into feminine gender. So свой changes into feminine gender as своя. Same is the case like мой, моя, свой, своя. Okay, so своя сестра, my own sister, one's own sister. Своя сестра. О ком он говорит, about whom he is talking. Он говорит о своей. Своей, because the ending is я, it changes into ये и краткий. О своей сестре. Now let's take one example of inanimate. Alright, о чем? Своя квартира, one owns flat or apartment. So the question can be о чем он рассказывает, about what he is narrating. Он рассказывает о своей квартире. Here the ending of своей remains same. However, the meaning changes because we are talking about something which is inanimate. So we have the answer on raskaziwet a swaye kwartire. He is talking about his own flat. Alright, now let's go ahead and see when do we have soi in neuter gender form. So like moi, maya, mayo, soi, swaya, swayo. So we have swayo, and let's put one noun pismo. So swayo pismo, one's own letter. Achom, achom, achom on gavrit a swayom pismye. And then we have very important aspect when somebody or someone asks about oneself. Asibe on lubit raskazivach asibe. He loves to talk about himself. So this is very important, which you need to remember, that although yivo, iyo, ik are possessive pronouns, they remain unchanged while answering a question akom or achom. So for example, yivo drug a yivo druge, iyo kniga a iyo knige. Alright, so it will not change. So you have to keep it in mind. And ik pismo, abik pisme. There ik will change into abik because you have the ik starting with a vowel e. So as per the rules, it would change into ob, ik. Alright, okay. So let's see that there is another very important concept in Russian grammar which we are going to talk about is demonstrative pronouns, which we use to answer the question akom or achom. Let's pay attention to this different kind of sentences which we have to understand how the demonstrative pronouns work. Eta pervi dom. So this word pervi is demonstrating. You understand? So eta pervi dom, vchera mi gavrili ab etam dom. So this is the first house. Yesterday we talked about this particular house. Rядом второй дом. Now from pervi to второй. So this is again a demonstrative pronoun. Второй дом. First it was first and then second. Мой друг живет в том доме. My friend lives in that house. So первый and второй. These are used to demonstrate the noun. So первый дом, первый pronoun, and noun is дом. Первый дом, второй дом, третий дом, четвертый дом, пятый дом, шестой дом, and on. Let's see the second example. Это ее любимая писательница. This is her favorite writer. Она часто говорит об этой писательнице. She oftenly talks about this particular female writer. Она живет в той деревне, где я живу. She lives in that village where I live. So it is again demonstrative. Той. Alright. Now let's see the third one. Это новое общежитие. So first we have done the masculine, second we have done is the feminine, and third one is the neuter. Это новое общежитие. This is a new hostel. Мой друг живет в этом общежитии. My friend lives in that particular hostel. А то общежитие очень старое. And that particular hostel we are talking about is very old. Я живу в том общежитии. I live in that общежитие or hostel. So what do we see here? One hostel, новое, demonstrative. Мой друг живет в этом общежитии. My friend lives in that, which is new. And that one, a to, this particular expression is demonstrating a to общежитие очень старое, and that hostel which I am indicating to is old. Я живу в том общежитии. I live in that hostel. So this, that, first, second, that village, this village. So these kind of indications are actually used to demonstrate. So these are the pronouns which we use with nouns to give more meaning to sentence or text wherever, whenever we use with certain kind of thought. In this, you can also see that since we are talking about the prepositional case, some of the construction we can ask the question with the help of Gijia. Some of the questions we can use acom and achom. Alright, so please read these sentences carefully, and you can also make your own sentences based on this particular exercise. So now we will discuss about a new concept which is very important in the Russian grammar, known as the verbs of motion or gлаголи движения. As you know that in Russian there are certain verbs which have two imperfective forms. These verbs are called the verbs of motion or глаголи движения because they state the basic type of motion, such as going on foot, going by vehicle or transport, flying, swimming, etc. Let's go ahead. But both these verbs, they indicate a movement on foot, such as we have идти and ходить. Идти, it denotes movement on foot in a particular direction, whereas ходить, it signifies either to and fro or movement in multiple directions. If you look at the example here, we have used the verb идти and with an example such as мой брат идет на стадион. So my brother is going to the stadium. Here we also have used predlog or the preposition na. But in case of verbs of motion, the ending of the noun does not change like we have seen in the prepositional case. For example, мой брат живет в стадионе. My brother lives in stadium. Suppose if I want to make this statement. But when I am using the verbs of motion, for example, идти, мой брат идет. So идти, we are conjugating the verb. Мой брат means on, идет куда? На стадион. So in place of где, we use the question куда. Куда он идет? Он идет на стадион. На стадион. So this is a particular case where you will find that when we make the sentences where we actually want to define a movement, whether in one direction or in multiple direction, we use these set of verbs which is known as verbs of motion. Alright, so now let's see the second case. The second case we have here is the verb is ходить. We have seen идти unidirection, ходить multidirection. So ходить, каждый день он ходит на стадион, which means that every day he goes to the stadium and comes back and goes to other places as well. So whenever you are using these kind of construction in sentences using the verbs of motion, it actually defines that particular relation. So now we have seen two verbs, идти, мой брат идет на стадион, and ходить, мой брат каждый день ходит на стадион. Okay, now let's go ahead and pay attention to this particular text where we are going to see some of the verbs of motions in a conjugated form, and we will see that how these verbs of motion are being used in Russian to define a particular movement. So please pay attention to the text. I'll start with каждое воскресенье, если погода хорошая, мы ходим в соседний лес. So every Sunday, if the weather is good, we go to the neighboring forest. Here we have used the verbs of motion ходить in a conjugated form for мы. Этот лес очень красивый, большой и густой. This particular forest is very beautiful, very big and very dense. Туда ходят разные люди. There people different people, they go. So, tуда there, khojet, raznie luji, different people go there. So, here we have used the construction khajich in a conjugated form of luji, which means ani khojet, plural form ani khojet. Kuda ani khojet, place. Alright, so you have to be very careful while using the construction, but the most important aspect is the meaning. So in this case, khojet means multi-direction. Nikatari sizyatnas ka meke, nikatari gulyayut, raska varivayut, payut pesne. So some people, they sit on the table, some they walk around, some they talk, and some they sing songs. So this is a kind of a text where you are learning about the verbs of motion as well as you are learning about the construction of a text where different kind of words and word combinations and expressions are being used. For example, you have seen here certain verbs like sigyat, conjugated form, ani sigyat. Then you have seen the verb gulyach in a conjugated form of ani gulyayut, and rasga varivayut, and page, to sing, payut. So these verbs you can also try to learn and try to conjugate and use in your own text in order to understand Russian in an efficient manner. Alright, now let's go ahead and complete the text. Inogda люди лежат прямо на траве и читают книги. Sometimes people, they lay on the grass and read books. В лесу есть небольшое озеро. In the forest. So, в лесу, prepositional case, в лесу, whereas in the глаголе движения or verbs of motion, в лес. Okay, this is the difference. В лесу есть небольшое озеро. In the forest, it has a small pond, озеро. Люди тут гуляют, отдыхают, собирают грибы, купаются в озере. So there people, they walk around, they take rest, they take some of the mushrooms and they swim in the pond. Рядом есть маленький детский парк. Nearby it has small children's park. Там дети играют, катаются на велосипеде. There children, they play and they ride bicycle. Лес – это прекрасное место для отдыха. Forest, it's a wonderful place for taking rest. So this is largely about a place, especially forest, as in Russia it is a tradition when people, they spend time, free time, holiday, they go to a forest, they do different kind of activities, they read, they listen to music, they talk, they ride bicycle, and many other activities they do right in front, right in middle of the places, and spend good time with the friends and families. So this text is not only information about the traditional life of Russia and Russians, but it is also about using certain nouns, certain verbs and certain expressions. So in this you have seen that we have used certain verbs like chitach in chitayut form, ani chitayut, что книги. Then we have seen that we have used gulyach in gulyayut, addikhach in addikhayut, sabirach in sabirayut. So they collect gribi. Sabirach gribi means to collect mushrooms. So this is again a very traditional hobby of Russians, to collect mushrooms from the forest and then make soup, make dishes and many other things which is very traditional and popular in Russia. Then we have seen the verb kupatsa, which means to swim, kupayutsa in a conjugated form for ani. And then we have seen other verbs like katayutsa, katayutsa. So katatsa means to ride, kupayutsa, kupatsa means to take bath or to swim. Alright, so these kind of important verbs we have seen in this text. Now let's go ahead and understand some of the important words and expressions which we have used in this text. Каждая, every. So this is in a neuter gender form. However, каждое утро you can use каждое утро, every morning. Погода means weather. Соседний лес means neighboring forest. Густое means dense. Разные means different. Люди means people. Скамейка means bench. Иногда means at times. Now we have more words like прямо, directly. Трава means grass. Озеро means lake. Собирать means to collect. Грибы means mushrooms. Купаться means to swim. Кататься на велосипеде means to ride a bicycle. Прекрасно means excellent, and отдых means rest. So here you have seen some of the important verbs, some of the important words and expression which we used in Russian with the help of this text. So I would like to suggest you all to prepare your own text while using the same expressions and try to use as many as words, expressions which you have learned in the previous modules, so that when you make your own text you will find it easy to comprehend and communicate in Russian in an efficient manner. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the questions we would like to ask you about the text. So the first question is from глаголе движения. Куда мы ходим каждое воскресенье? Where do we go every Sunday? So мы ходим в лес каждое воскресенье. And then you can also define it, explain it with the help of many other adjectives, many other words which we have in the text. Кто еще ходит в этот лес? Who else go to this particular forest? Then the third one is что люди делают в этом лесу? So this is a particular case of preposition case where we are asking the question что люди делают в этом лесу, in this particular forest. So the next one is где есть небольшое озеро? Где? Where do we have a small lake? Then we have что делают дети в парке? What do the children do in the park? So what do children do in the park? So these kind of questions, very simple, right from the text. You can read the text carefully, understand it, try to use your imagination and try to use as many as new words which you have learned. Use them while answering these set of questions we have asked, which are absolutely based on the text. You will find it very helpful in order to build your vocabulary and enrich your thought process in Russian. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Okay, so now we will quickly revise about what we have learned in this module. In this module we have discussed about the verbs of motion, or known as глаголе движения. We have discussed about two basic verbs, идти and ходить, which means to go in a unidirection, one way, and ходить, multidirection. And we have done two questions. Где means prepositional case. In this case we use куда, where to. So куда он идет, where he is going. Он идет на стадион. So he is going to stadium. This is a unidirection. Whereas when we ask Kudaun khojat, where is he going? It means it is not a unidirection. We can say Unkash da utara khojat na stadion. He goes to stadium every morning. So these kind of sentences which we use actually describes the nature of movement, whether it is uni or multi. You can also make your own sentences based on these two verbs, and with the help of this text which we have just read, you can also answer the questions we have asked. Thank you.